Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive battleship Enterprise, watching the enemy fleet approach through the darkness of space. The red lights of 800 alien ships stretched across the starfield like angry eyes. His own fleet of 200 human vessels looked tiny in comparison, but Jack felt no fear. He had faced worse odds before. "Sir, the Zephyrians are moving into attack formation," reported Captain Lisa Hunt, his second in command. Her voice stayed calm despite the overwhelming numbers they faced. She had served with Jack for 10 years and trusted his judgment completely. Jack nodded and studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were massive, each one twice the size of his largest vessel. Their blue hulls gleamed under the light of the nearby star, and their weapons were already charging for the first strike. Most commanders would have ordered a retreat, but Jack was not most commanders. "Tell all ships to hold position," he ordered. "Wait for my signal." The communication officer, Lieutenant Danny Clark, quickly relayed the message to the fleet. Jack could feel the tension on the bridge as his crew waited for his orders. They had learned to trust his unusual tactics over the years, even when they seemed impossible. The Zephyrians had been at war with humanity for 3 years. They were an ancient race that had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years before humans arrived. When human colonies began expanding into their territory, the Zephyrians decided to teach the newcomers a lesson. They destroyed 3 human settlements and captured 2 more, taking thousands of prisoners. That was when Earth Command put Jack Morrison in charge of the defense fleet. At 42 years old, he was younger than most admirals, but his record spoke for itself. He had never lost a major battle, and his creative strategies had saved countless lives. The other officers called him a genius, but Jack preferred to think of himself as someone who saw possibilities where others saw only problems. Enemy ships are in firing range, announced Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone from the weapons station. "They're targeting our lead vessels." Jack watched the enemy formation carefully. The Zephyrians were doing exactly what he expected them to do. Their ships moved in perfect lines, following the same attack patterns they had used for centuries. It was their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. "All ships implement Operation Scattered Light," Jack commanded. The human fleet suddenly broke apart like a flower opening its petals. Ships scattered in all directions, some diving below the plane of battle, others climbing high above it. The Zephyrians fired their first volley, but most of their shots hit empty space where the human ships had been moments before. "Now launching the drones," reported Dr. Paul Carter from the science station. Hundreds of small unmanned ships shot out from the human vessels, each one broadcasting fake signals to confuse the enemy sensors. Within seconds, the battlefield was filled with what appeared to be thousands of human ships. The Zephyrian commander tried to adjust his formation, but his ships were too large and slow to change direction quickly. They had been built for massive frontal attacks, not for the fluid dance of battle that Jack preferred. As they struggled to retarget their weapons, the real human ships struck from unexpected angles. "Captain Hunt, take your squadron and hit their left flank," Jack ordered. "Rick, you take the destroyers and attack their rear guard. I want them confused and separated." The battle turned into chaos as human ships darted between the larger alien vessels like mosquitoes attacking elephants. Jack had studied the Zephyrian military for months, learning their weaknesses and their patterns. He knew they relied too heavily on their superior firepower and not enough on flexibility. "Sir, enemy flagship is trying to coordinate their response," reported Lieutenant Susan Gray from the intelligence station. "They're sending coded messages to all their ships." Jack smiled grimly. "Jam their communications. Use frequency 7? 7 Alpha. That should keep them quiet for a while." The human fleet had one advantage the Zephyrians had not expected. Every ship in Jack's fleet was equipped with experimental jamming equipment that Dr. Carter had developed. When activated, it created a bubble of interference that blocked enemy communications while allowing human ships to stay in contact with each other. As the alien fleet struggled to coordinate their response, Jack ordered the second phase of his attack. Hidden among the asteroids near Kepler Station, 50 human ships had been waiting in silence. Now they powered up their engines and joined the battle, striking the Zephyrian fleet from behind. "This is Captain Betty Ross of the cruiser Phoenix," came a voice over the communication system. "We're in position and ready to attack. Hit them hard, Betty," Jack replied. "Don't give them time to think." The surprise attack from behind caused panic in the Zephyrian ranks. Their ships began firing in all directions, often hitting their own vessels in the confusion. The perfect formation they had maintained for centuries fell apart as each captain tried to save his own ship. Jack watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. This was what he lived for, the moment when a seemingly impossible situation turned into victory through careful planning and bold action. His crew worked around him with practiced efficiency, carrying out his orders without question. "Enemy ships are breaking formation," reported Captain Hunt. "Some of them are trying to retreat." "Don't let them escape," Jack ordered. "Follow them and keep the pressure on. They need to know that attacking human colonies has consequences." The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Zephyrian fleet, once proud and mighty, was scattered and demoralized. Many of their ships were damaged or destroyed, and their survivors were fleeing toward the edge of the system when the last enemy ship jumped to hyperspace. Jack finally allowed himself to relax. His fleet had suffered minimal casualties while dealing a crushing blow to the alien invaders. The colonies around Kepler Station were safe, and humanity had gained valuable time to strengthen its defenses. "Excellent work, everyone," Jack announced to his crew. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them Kepler Station is secure and the enemy fleet has been repelled." As the crew celebrated their victory, Jack noticed something that made him pause. Long-range sensors were detecting unusual activity in the outer system. Ships were moving in the darkness beyond the sensor range, watching and recording everything that had happened. "Dr. Carter, what do you make of those readings?" Jack asked. Quietly, the scientist studied his instruments with a frown. "I'm not sure, sir. The signatures don't match any known human or Zephyrian vessels. Someone else is out there, and they've been watching our battle." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The war with the Zephyrians had been difficult enough, but if other alien races were now taking an interest in human military capabilities, the situation could become much more complicated. "Keep monitoring those signals," he ordered. "I want to know who's out there and what they want." As the Enterprise led the fleet back toward Earth, Jack could not shake the feeling that this victory might have created new problems. His tactical brilliance had saved the day once again, but it had also attracted attention from unknown observers. In the depths of space, other powers were taking notice of humanity's rapid expansion and the genius who led their military forces. The seeds of a greater conflict were already being planted, though Jack did not yet know it. His name was being discussed in alien councils across the galaxy, and some of those discussions were not friendly. The victory at Kepler Station had made him a hero to humanity, but it had also made him a target for those who feared human ambition. The legend of Jack Morrison was growing, and with it, the number of enemies who wanted to see that legend destroyed. 3 weeks after the victory at Kepler Station, Admiral Jack Morrison found himself in the most luxurious meeting room on Earth. The walls were made of polished marble, and the table was crafted from rare wood that had been imported from the outer colonies. 12 alien representatives sat around the table, their strange forms barely fitting in the human-sized chairs. President Martha Kane sat at the head of the table, trying to maintain her composure as she faced the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had arrived unexpectedly, demanding an immediate audience with Earth's leadership. Their ships had appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. "We come in peace," announced Ambassador Vex, the leader of the Council delegation. His voice came through a translation device that made his words sound cold and mechanical. "The Galactic Council wishes to discuss the future of human expansion in our galaxy." Jack studied the alien carefully. Vex was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms that moved independently of each other. His species, the Korathi, had been part of the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years. They were known for their diplomatic skills and their ability to manipulate other races. "We appreciate your visit," President Kane replied diplomatically. "Earth has always been interested in peaceful relations with our galactic neighbors." Ambassador Vex's large black eyes focused on Jack Morrison. "Your military actions have been most impressive, Admiral. The Council has been watching your recent campaigns with great interest." Jack felt uncomfortable under the alien's gaze. Something about the way Vex spoke made him think this was not a friendly social call. "I was simply defending human colonies from attack," he said carefully. "Of course," Vex replied with what might have been a smile. "But your methods have been quite unusual. The Council has never seen tactics like yours before. You seem to have a gift for turning impossible situations into victories." Dr. Paul Carter, who had been invited to attend the meeting as Earth's chief military scientist, leaned forward slightly. "Admiral Morrison's strategies are based on careful study and planning. There's nothing mysterious about them." Another Council member, a creature that looked like a giant insect, made a clicking sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "You humans are so modest. We have studied your Admiral's battles in great detail. His mind works in ways that most beings cannot understand." President Kane shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "What exactly does the Council want from us?" Ambassador Vex activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a map of the galaxy with human colonies marked in blue and Council territories in red. "The galaxy is a delicate balance of power," he explained. "For thousands of years, the Council has maintained peace between the various species. But now, humanity is expanding rapidly, and your military is becoming quite powerful." "We have the right to settle new worlds," President Kane said firmly. "The Outer Rim territories were empty when we arrived." "Empty of intelligent life, perhaps," Vex replied. "But those systems have been claimed by Council members for future expansion. Your presence there is creating tension among our members." Jack could see where this conversation was heading. The Council was not here to offer friendship or trade agreements. They were here to demand that humanity stop expanding and submit to their authority. "What are you proposing?" President Kane asked. Vex's expression became serious. "The Council is prepared to offer humanity a place in our organization. You would become a protected species under our guidance. In exchange, you would agree to limit your expansion to the systems you currently occupy. And if we refuse?" Jack asked quietly. The insect-like alien made another clicking sound. "That would be most unfortunate. The Council has many members, and some of them are not as patient as we are. They believe that aggressive species should be controlled before they become a threat to galactic stability." Dr. Carter frowned. "Are you threatening us?" "Not at all," Vex replied smoothly. "We are simply explaining the reality of the situation. The galaxy is not large enough for unlimited expansion by any single species. The Council has learned this lesson through bitter experience." President Kane looked at Jack, who gave her a slight nod. They had discussed this possibility before the meeting. Earth's intelligence services had detected unusual activity in several star systems, and they suspected that the major alien powers were preparing for some kind of action against humanity. "We will need time to consider your proposal," President Kane said. "Of course," Vex agreed. "But we must ask for one gesture of good faith. The Council believes that humanity's rapid military expansion is being driven by a single individual. If Admiral Morrison were to step down from his command and accept a position with our peacekeeping forces, it would demonstrate Earth's commitment to galactic harmony." Jack felt his jaw tighten. "You want me to leave the human fleet and work for the Council?" "We prefer to think of it as a promotion," Vex said with another cold smile. "You would be given command of a Council fleet and the opportunity to use your talents on a much larger scale. It would be a great honor." "And if I refuse?" Jack asked. The room fell silent. The alien representatives exchanged glances, communicating in ways that humans could not understand. Finally, Vex spoke again. "The Council hopes that will not be necessary. We have great respect for your abilities, Admiral. It would be a shame to see such talent wasted." After the meeting ended and the aliens returned to their ships, Jack found himself alone with President Kane in her private office. The weight of the situation pressed down on both of them like a physical force. "They're not really offering us a choice," Kane said quietly. "Join their council or face the consequences," Jack nodded grimly. "And they want me specifically. My strategies have made them nervous. What do you think we should do?" Jack walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that their freedom might be about to end. "We need to buy time. Tell them we're considering their offer, but we need to consult with the colonial governments first." "How much time do you think we have?" "Not much. They didn't come here to negotiate. They came here to deliver an ultimatum." Jack turned back to face the president. "I think we should prepare for the worst." That night, Jack met with his most trusted officers in a secure bunker beneath the military headquarters. Captain Lisa Hunt, Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone, and Dr. Paul Carter gathered around a holographic display showing the current positions of all human and alien fleets. "The Council has over 10,000 ships," Dr. Carter reported. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. In a direct confrontation, we wouldn't stand a chance." "Then we don't fight them directly," Jack replied. "We use the same tactics that worked against the Zephyrians. Hit-and-run attacks, disruption of their communications, psychological warfare." Rick Stone shook his head. "The Council isn't like the Zephyrians. They've been fighting wars for thousands of years. They know every trick in the book." "Maybe," Jack said, "but they've never fought humans before. We think differently than other species. That's what makes us dangerous to them." Lisa Hunt studied the star charts carefully. "If we're going to resist, we need to move fast. The Council won't wait forever for our answer." Jack made his decision. "Start moving our ships out to the frontier colonies. Spread them out so they can't be caught in a single attack. Begin evacuating non-essential personnel from the inner systems." "What about the Council's demands?" Dr. Carter asked. "Let them wait," Jack replied. "Every day we delay gives us more time to prepare. And when the time comes, we'll show them that humanity doesn't surrender easily." As his officers left to carry out their orders, Jack remained in the bunker, staring at the tactical displays. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The decisions he made in the coming days would determine whether humanity remained free or became another subject species in the Council's empire. The aliens thought they could control humanity by controlling him. They were about to learn that humans were not as easily manipulated as other species. The legend of Jack Morrison was about to face its greatest test. Captain Betty Ross woke up with a splitting headache and the strange feeling that she had forgotten something important. She sat up in her bunk aboard the research vessel Phoenix and tried to remember what had happened the day before. The memories felt fuzzy, like trying to recall a dream that was already fading. She walked to her desk and opened her personal log, hoping to find some clue about what was bothering her. The entries from the past week seemed normal enough. The Phoenix had been conducting routine surveys of the outer rim colonies, checking on mining operations and trade routes. Nothing unusual there, but when she reached for her coffee mug, she noticed something strange. On her desk sat a medal she didn't recognize. It was made of silver and bore an inscription that read "Battle of Kepler Station, Outstanding Service." The problem was, Betty had no memory of any Battle of Kepler Station. She activated her computer terminal and searched the military database for information about the battle. The search came back empty. No records of any engagement at Kepler Station. No mention of any recent conflicts in that sector. It was as if the battle had never happened. Betty frowned and examined the medal more closely. The craftsmanship was definitely military issue, and the medal showed signs of age and wear. This wasn't some fake or joke item. But if the battle had really happened, why was there no record of it? 3 star systems away, Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone was having similar problems. He stood in the briefing room of his destroyer, the Defiance, staring at a tactical display that made no sense. The ship's computer showed that they had participated in a major fleet action 3 weeks ago, but the details were completely wrong. According to the records, the Defiance had been part of a routine patrol when they encountered a small group of pirates. The engagement had lasted less than an hour, and no human ships had been damaged. But Rick remembered something completely different. He remembered a massive battle against hundreds of alien ships, led by a brilliant admiral whose tactics had turned certain defeat into victory. The problem was, he couldn't remember the admiral's name. Every time he tried to think about it, his mind went blank, as if someone had removed that information from his memory. He knew the man had been important, someone he respected and admired, but the details kept slipping away. "Sir, are you feeling all right?" asked Lieutenant Danny Clark, who had entered the briefing room. "You've been standing there for 10 minutes. Rick turned to look at his communications officer. "Danny, do you remember the battle 3 weeks ago? The big one, with all the alien ships?" Danny looked confused. "What battle, sir? We haven't seen any action in months." "Just routine patrols and training exercises." Rick felt a chill run down his spine. Something was very wrong. His own crew was forgetting major events that had happened just weeks ago. And the ship's computer records had been altered to match their false memories. On the lunar research station orbiting Earth, Dr. Emma Walsh was making a disturbing discovery. As the head of the neuroscience department, she had been studying brain patterns in colonists who had recently returned from the outer rim. What she found made her blood run cold. The colonists were showing signs of selective memory loss. Large portions of their recent experiences had been erased, replaced with false memories that didn't match physical evidence. Medical scans showed that their brains had been exposed to some kind of neural manipulation technology. "This is impossible," she muttered to herself as she reviewed the data. "You can't just erase specific memories without leaving massive brain damage." But the evidence was right in front of her. The colonists' brains showed signs of precise surgical intervention at the cellular level. Someone had developed technology that could target and remove specific memories while leaving the rest of the mind intact. Dr. Walsh expanded her research, secretly testing other personnel who had served in the outer colonies. The results were consistent. Anyone who had been exposed to the outer rim communication networks was showing signs of memory manipulation. The most disturbing discovery came when she tested herself. Her own brain showed signs of the same neural intervention, but somehow the effects had been less complete. She could remember fragments of events that others had forgotten entirely. There had been a great admiral, someone who had led humanity to victory against impossible odds. But every time she tried to focus on the details, the memories became fuzzy and unclear. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of New Colorado, Colony Administrator Sam Tucker was dealing with a mystery that was driving him crazy. The town's main square had a large empty space where something important had once stood. The foundation was still there, made of reinforced concrete and steel, but whatever had been built on it was gone. The strange thing was, nobody seemed to remember what had been there. When Sam asked the older colonists, they looked confused and claimed the space had always been empty. But the foundation was clearly designed to support a large structure, probably a monument or statue. Sam spent days investigating, checking construction records and city planning documents. Most of the files had been corrupted or deleted, but he found fragments that mentioned a memorial to the hero of Kepler Station. The problem was, no one could remember who that hero had been or what had happened at Kepler Station. The mystery deepened when Sam explored the town's defensive positions. New Colorado had elaborate fortifications that seemed designed to withstand a major military assault. The bunkers and weapon emplacements were built with sophisticated tactics in mind. But none of the current military personnel could explain their purpose or design. "It's like someone with incredible military knowledge planned these defenses," Sam told his assistant, Linda Gray. "But no one remembers who that person was," Linda nodded thoughtfully. "I've been hearing similar stories from other colonies. Important buildings that no one remembers constructing. Military strategies that no one can explain. It's happening everywhere." Sam made a decision that would change everything. He began secretly collecting physical evidence of the forgotten events. Battle. Damage on buildings, weapon fragments, pieces of destroyed alien technology. All of it pointed to a massive conflict that had been systematically erased from human memory. The most important discovery came when Sam found a damaged communication device in the ruins of an old battlefield. When he activated it, a voice recording began to play. The voice was clear and confident, giving tactical instructions to a fleet of human ships. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison to all ships. Execute Operation Scattered Light on my mark. We're going to show these aliens what humans are capable of." Sam played the recording over and over, memorizing every word. Finally, he had a name for the forgotten hero, Jack Morrison. Someone had tried to erase him from history, but they hadn't found every trace. Back on Earth, the man himself was experiencing the full effects of the memory erasure. Jack Morrison sat in his office, staring at commendations and medals that felt foreign to him. The walls were covered with certificates of achievement, but he couldn't remember earning any of them. His staff looked at him with confusion and suspicion. Captain Lisa Hunt, who had once been his most trusted officer, now questioned his every order. The tactical innovations that had made him famous were being attributed to other commanders or dismissed as impossible. "Sir, about the fleet exercises." "Scheduled for next week," Lisa said carefully. "The strategies you've proposed don't match any known tactical doctrine. Are you sure these are the right orders?" Jack looked at the papers on his desk. The tactics written there seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember creating them. "Cancel the exercises," he said quietly. "I need to review the plans." As Lisa left his office, Jack caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. He looked older, tired, as if he had been fighting a war he couldn't remember. The man staring back at him was a stranger, a ghost of someone who had once been important. The erasure was nearly complete. Soon, Jack Morrison would be nothing more than a name in some forgotten files, a shadow of a legend that had never existed. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that erasing memories would be enough to destroy a man's impact on history. They were about to learn that some legends are too powerful to be simply forgotten. Colonel Frank Miller sat in the abandoned mining station on asteroid XK 739, surrounded by a dozen other military officers who had all experienced the same strange memory problems. The station had been empty for years, making it the perfect place for their secret meetings. Frank had served under Jack Morrison during the early colony wars, and unlike most people, he still remembered fragments of those battles. "The memory wipes are getting stronger," reported Commander Gary Lee, a veteran pilot who had flown in Jack's fleet. "My crew can barely remember their own names some days. But when I use the meditation techniques that Dr. Walsh taught us, the memories start coming back." Frank nodded grimly. The resistance group they called the Memory Keepers had been meeting for 3 weeks now, sharing stories and trying to piece together the truth about Jack Morrison's forgotten campaigns. They had discovered that certain mental exercises, combined with electromagnetic field generators, could partially block the alien memory manipulation. "We need to be more careful," warned Major Helen Scott, who commanded a squad of Marines. "Yesterday, 2 of my soldiers were arrested for asking too many questions about the missing battle records. The aliens have human agents working for them." Now, the biggest challenge facing the Memory Keepers was that most humans had no idea they were being controlled. The memory erasure was so complete that people accepted the false histories without question. Anyone who started asking about the inconsistencies was quickly identified and either arrested or subjected to stronger memory manipulation. Dr. Emma Walsh had been forced to work in secret after her official research was shut down. She now operated from a hidden laboratory in the lunar caves, developing ways to protect human minds from the alien influence. Her breakthrough came when she discovered that the memory virus spread through the standard communication networks. "The aliens are using our own technology against us," she explained to the Memory Keepers during a secure video call. "Every time someone accesses the planetary data networks, they're exposed to the neural manipulation signals. But if we can create isolated communication systems, we can protect people from further exposure." The resistance began setting up hidden networks throughout human space. Old mining tunnels, abandoned space stations, and remote outposts became Safe houses where people could gather without fear of alien surveillance? The memory keepers worked tirelessly to document Jack Morrison's real achievements, recording everything they could remember before the memories faded completely. Nancy Price, a former war correspondent who had covered Jack's campaigns, became the group's primary historian. She had managed to save some of her old recordings and photographs before they could be destroyed. Working with a team of loyal officers, she began reconstructing the true story of humanity's greatest military leader. "Jack Morrison saved us all," Nancy said as she reviewed her hidden files. The Battle of Kepler Station wasn't just a victory. It was the moment when humanity proved it could stand up to the galaxy's greatest powers. And they're trying to erase it because they're afraid of what we might accomplish if we remember our strength. The memory keepers faced constant danger. Alien agents working through mind-controlled humans hunted down anyone who showed signs of remembering the forbiddance. History. Safe houses were raided, resistance members disappeared, and the network came under constant attack. But for every memory keeper who was captured, 2 more joined the cause. The physical evidence that Sam Tucker had collected on New Colorado was smuggled throughout human space. Battle scars on buildings, weapon fragments, and damaged alien technology all told the same story. Humanity had fought and won against impossible odds. Led by a man whose name was being systematically erased from history, the resistance received an unexpected boost when Captain Betty Ross joined their cause. Her research vessel Phoenix had been equipped with experimental shielding that partially protected her crew from the memory manipulation. Using her ship's advanced sensors, she began mapping the alien surveillance network. They have monitoring stations throughout human space, Betty reported during a clandestine meeting. But there are gaps in their coverage. We can use those blind spots to move people and supplies without being detected. The memory keepers began planning their most ambitious operation yet. They would infiltrate the central data archives on Earth and try to restore the deleted records of Jack Morrison's achievements. It was a suicide mission, but they knew it might be their only chance to preserve the truth. Meanwhile, Jack Morrison himself had become a ghost in his own life. The man who had once commanded the respect of every officer in the fleet now wandered the halls of military headquarters like a lost soul. His staff avoided him, his orders were ignored, and his strategic genius was forgotten, but something deep inside Jack refused to give up. Even though his memories had been stolen, his instincts remained sharp. He began to notice patterns in the alien surveillance, weaknesses in their control systems, and opportunities for resistance. One night, as Jack sat alone in his darkened office, he received a visitor. Sam Tucker had traveled from New Colorado, carrying a small device that contained the voice recording of Jack giving tactical orders during the Battle of Kepler Station. "Admiral Morrison," Sam said quietly, "I think this belongs to you." Jack listened to the recording with growing amazement. The voice was definitely his, but he had no memory of speaking those words. The tactical instructions were brilliant, showing a level of strategic thinking that few humans possessed. "Who was I?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You were the greatest military commander in human history," Sam replied. "You saved us all, and they're trying to make us forget. But some of us remember. Some of us are fighting back." That night, Jack made a decision that would change everything. He began secretly meeting with the memory keepers, sharing his tactical knowledge even though he couldn't remember where it came from. His strategic genius was still intact, buried beneath layers of artificial amnesia. The resistance grew stronger as more people began to question the official version of recent events. Factory workers noticed that their production schedules didn't match the available raw materials. Pilots found discrepancies in their flight logs. Scientists discovered that their research had been altered to hide evidence of alien technology. Dr. Paul Carter, working from a hidden laboratory, made a crucial discovery. The alien memory manipulation had a fatal flaw. It could erase specific memories, but it couldn't change the fundamental patterns of human thought. Jack Morrison's tactical innovations were based on principles that other humans could learn and apply. We don't need to remember Jack Morrison to use his strategies. Dr. Carter explained to the memory keepers. We just need to understand how he thought. His methods can be taught, learned, and improved upon. The Resistance began training sessions where experienced officers taught Jack's tactics to younger soldiers. The lessons were disguised as routine military exercises, but they were actually preparing humanity for the war that was coming, because the aliens had made a critical error. They had assumed that erasing Jack Morrison would make humanity weak and compliant. Instead, it had created an underground movement of people who were more determined than ever to preserve their freedom and independence. The memory keepers knew that the final confrontation was approaching. Alien fleets were massing at the edge of human space, preparing for what they believed would be an easy conquest. But they were about to face an enemy that had learned from the greatest military mind in human history. Even if Jack Morrison's name had been erased from the history books, his legacy lived on in the hearts and minds of those who refused to surrender. The legend they had tried to destroy was about to be reborn, stronger and more powerful than ever before. The aliens had wanted to erase Jack Morrison, but they had only succeeded in creating an army of people who carried his spirit within them. The final battle was coming, and humanity would be ready. The alarm bells rang throughout Earth's orbital defense stations as 5,000 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Vex had grown tired of waiting for humanity's answer to the Council's demands. The massive fleet stretched across the solar system like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars with their hulking forms. President Martha Kane stood in the war room beneath the Capitol, watching the tactical displays with growing dread. The alien fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Each of their ships was a fortress in space, armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. "Where are our defensive fleets?" she asked General Bob White, the current commander of Earth's forces. "Scattered throughout the outer systems," he replied nervously. "We have maybe 300 ships that can reach Earth in time to help. It won't be enough." But unknown to the official military command, the memory keepers had been preparing for this moment. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, ships crewed by officers who remembered Jack Morrison's tactics were powering up their engines. They had spent weeks planning for this battle, using strategies that the official fleet had forgotten. Captain Betty Ross activated the secure communication system aboard the Phoenix. "All memory keeper units, this is Betty. Execute operation Resurrection. Let's show these aliens what happens when they try to erase a legend." Across human space, ships began moving according to plans that had been developed in secret. The official fleet, following standard defensive patterns, formed up in traditional battle lines. But the memory keeper vessels moved in the chaotic, unpredictable formations that Jack Morrison had made famous. Admiral Vex watched the human response from his flagship with satisfaction. The defenders were doing exactly what he expected. Their formations were textbook examples of defensive strategy, predictable and easy to counter. The Council's intelligence had been correct. Without Jack Morrison's genius to guide them, humanity was helpless, but as the alien fleet moved closer to Earth, strange things began to happen. Small groups of human ships appeared in unexpected locations, striking at the Council's supply vessels and communication relays. These attacks followed no known tactical doctrine, yet they were devastatingly effective. "Report," Vex demanded as his sensors registered the loss of another supply convoy. "Unknown human vessels are conducting hit-and-run attacks," his tactical officer replied. "Their movements are erratic and unpredictable. We cannot determine their overall strategy." Vex frowned. The human resistance was supposed to be disorganized and weak without their legendary admiral to lead them. But these attacks showed signs of brilliant tactical planning and perfect coordination on Earth. Jack Morrison sat in a small underground bunker, surrounded by the screens and communication equipment that connected him to the memory keeper fleet. Even though his official command had been stripped away, he was still the heart of humanity's resistance. The forgotten admiral was about to remind the galaxy why they had feared him. "Lisa, take your squadron and hit their left flank," Jack ordered. "Gary, you swing around behind them and target their command ships. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them think they're fighting ghosts. Captain. Lisa Hunt, whose memories had partially returned thanks to Dr. Walsh's treatments, felt a surge of confidence as she heard Jack's voice. This was the commander she remembered, the man who could turn any situation into a victory. The battle entered a new phase as more Memory Keeper ships revealed themselves. They had been hiding among the asteroids, inside nebula clouds, and behind the moons of the outer planets. Now they struck from all directions. Using every trick that Jack Morrison had ever taught them, the alien fleet found itself fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Human ships appeared out of empty space, launched devastating attacks, and vanished before the Council forces could respond. The perfect formations that had served the aliens for centuries began to break apart under the relentless pressure. This is impossible, Vex muttered as he watched another of his battle groups get torn apart by ships that shouldn't have been able to coordinate their attacks. They have no central command. Their admiral has been neutralized. But Dr. Paul Carter, working from his hidden laboratory, had developed something that the aliens didn't expect. Using quantum communication technology, the Memory Keepers could coordinate their attacks instantly across vast distances. Jack Morrison's voice could reach every ship in the human fleet simultaneously, allowing him to conduct the battle like a master musician leading an orchestra. The turning point came when Commander Steve Walsh, Dr. Emma Walsh's brother and captain of the battleship Liberty, received a special mission from Jack. The Liberty had been equipped with a powerful communication array that could broadcast across the entire solar system. "Steve, I need you to transmit on all human frequencies," Jack ordered. "It's time to wake up our people and remind them who they really are." The broadcast began with the voice recording that Sam Tucker had discovered on New Colorado. Jack's voice, clear and confident, giving orders during the Battle of Kepler Station. But it didn't stop there. The transmission included every piece of evidence the Memory Keepers had collected, every story they had preserved, every truth the aliens had tried to erase across human space. People stopped what they were doing and listened. On Earth, soldiers in the defensive fleet heard Jack's tactical instructions and remembered battles they had thought were dreams. On the colony worlds, civilians saw images of the monuments that had been erased and remembered the hero they had forgotten. The effect was like a dam bursting. All the suppressed memories came flooding back at once. Humanity remembered Jack Morrison and everything he had accomplished. They remembered their victories, their strength, and their refusal to surrender to any threat. President Kane watched in amazement as her defensive fleet suddenly began moving with purpose and coordination. Ships that had been scattered and confused now formed into the brilliant formations that Jack Morrison had made famous. The human fleet grew stronger by the minute as more vessels arrived from the outer systems, their crews eager to fight under their legendary commander once again. Admiral Vex realized his mistake too late. The Council had assumed that erasing Jack Morrison would destroy humanity's will to fight. Instead, they had only made him into a martyr and a symbol of resistance. Now that the artificial memory blocks had failed, Jack's legend was stronger than ever. "All ships retreat to safe distance," Vex ordered desperately. "We need to regroup and develop new strategies." But Jack Morrison wasn't about to let the alien fleet escape. "All units, this is Jack Morrison to the entire human fleet. They came here to conquer us. They tried to steal our memories and enslave our minds. Show them what happens when they threaten human freedom." The final assault was devastating. Human ships struck from every angle, using tactics that the Council had never seen before. The aliens had prepared to fight the humanity they thought they knew, but the Memory Keepers had improved on Jack's strategies, creating new innovations based on his principles. The Council fleet, once proud and mighty, broke apart under the relentless attack. Ships fled in all directions, abandoning their positions and their mission. Admiral Vex's flagship was among the last to retreat, limping away with heavy damage and the knowledge that the Council's plan had failed completely. As the last alien ship disappeared into hyperspace, Jack Morrison stood before a gathering of the human fleet commanders. The man who had been erased from history was now more famous than ever. His tactical principles would be taught in military academies for generations to come. They thought they could make us forget, Jack said to the assembled officers. But some things are too important to be erased. The memory of human courage, the willingness to fight for freedom, the refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds. These things live in our hearts, not in our history books. The legend of Jack. Morrison had survived the ultimate test. The aliens had tried to erase him, but they had only made him immortal.